Happy Thanksgiving. The pie that I'm making, and I'll tell you more about it in a minute because it has to sit in a minute, is my grandmother's mock cherry pie. So this is 2 cups of cranberries cut in half. I love the inside of the cranberries. They look a little bit like okra. It's really interesting. I don't know that I'd ever looked inside a cranberry before. A cup of raisins, cup and a half of sugar. This is not for the faint of heart. A tablespoon of flour and a tiny bit of salt, and a half cup of water. So what we do is we mix those up and we let them sit for a minute while I talk to you about pie, because, well, my grandmother was not much of an explainer. She just said, do this, then do this, then do this. But my theory is that we want the raisins to plump up a little bit in the water. So I'm just stirring for a minute, and then we're going to just leave it for a couple of minutes. So basically, mock cherry pie is what it sounds like. It's not a cherry pie, but it's what people at the turn of the last century, which is when my grandmother was growing up, would have made, because unless you canned your cherries, as you know, our New England cherry season is very short. So even if you had a cherry tree in your yard, you might not have cherries at this time of year, but you would have cranberries, and a lot of people had dried raisins. So you put them together. I think you could call it cranberry raisin pie, and some people do, but my grandmother always called it mock cherry pie. It was, as I said, very popular at that time of year, at that time of the history. And in fact, there's a recipe for it in an early Fanny Farmer cookbook, which makes sense. My grandmother may have even learned to make it from Fanny Farmer because she studied at the Boston cooking school with Miss Farmer. So anyway, this was very popular. It makes a small pie. You see, I have an 8-inch pie crust here. So let me talk to you for a minute about pie while we're letting that macerate. I'm not actually a pie person. I mean, I love fruit, but why would you bother putting pastry all around it? But at Thanksgiving, everyone pretty much is a pie person, because Thanksgiving is all about tradition and family, and my family tradition, like probably a lot of yours, is pie. So I did a little bit of research about pie and New England, and I have a couple of quotations I would like to read to you because they're so cute. So the philosopher Don Marquis said, "I love you as New Englanders love pie." And Harriet Beecher Stowe, who you probably know, lived in Connecticut, wrote, "The pie is an English institution which, planted on American soil, forthwith ran rampant and burst forth into an untold variety of genera and species." So my favorite writer on pie actually grew up not far from me in Charlemont. His name was Charles Dudley Warner. He co-wrote The Gilded Age with Mark Twain. And he speculated that there was a line across New England that demarcated the land of perpetual pie, which I presume we're in, sort of vaguely northern New England. And he said that in that area, especially in the hill towns, which is where I live, a woman might be more ashamed to not have a pie in her house than to have a dirty house. And if you didn't have a pie, it was worse than not having your Bible. I think that was tongue-in-cheek. Anyway, I'm going to try putting this in my pie crust. It can always macerate a little bit longer in the pie crust. So this is an 8-inch pie crust. And I think the raisins have already expanded a little bit because it's quite a bit of fruit for my 8-inch pie crust. But it will work. Come on, in you go, guys. And when you get the final product, the cranberries don't exactly have the flavor of cherries, but the raisins and the sugar sweeten them up a little bit. They certainly have the color of cherries, and it's a wonderful flavor. I adore cranberries. I call them the Ruby of the Thanksgiving table. Not to be confused with my cat, whose name is also Ruby. Okay, I'm going to stop now. I'll finish this. I'll put the top pie crust on. I'll go make little slits for it to breathe and steam, and then I'll be back with the final product. So we're back. I did put this on a cookie sheet, which is a good thing because it did drip a little bit. All those juicinesses came out. And as you can see, I cut little slits. You can sort of see the cranberry peeking through the little slits. And I put it in a 425 oven for 10 minutes, and then I reduced the heat to 350 and cooked it for another half hour, and it looks kind of done to me. So I'm going to enjoy it on Thanksgiving, and I hope happy Thanksgiving from my family to yours. Bye.